Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for your time today. Firstly, I hope and I trust that all of you, your family and friends are keeping safe and healthy given the current global health crisis. And by the way, for all of those LA Dodgers and Lakers fans that's joining us in this webinar, congratulations, a nice double whammy. At least 2020 is turning out to be a good year for Los Angeles. So back to our webinar. As Danielle said, my name is Vishal Prakash. I am a product manager, and I've been with ProSoft for just under 3 years, and I'm responsible for our remote connectivity and IIoT solution portfolio. I've been in the industry for over 20 years with a background primarily with SCADA and telemetry in the utility sector. So today's session, as the name suggests, is all about connectivity solutions for water and wastewater utilities. Reliable data and connectivity is really the prerequisite for anything, and whether that's predictive maintenance, operational efficiency, reducing mean time to repair, or meeting regulatory requirements, for any of these, it's really connectivity that is the number one. So before we get started, and for those of you who do not know, ProSoft has been around for over 30 years. And we're pretty much your industrial connectivity experts, whether you're looking for solutions to connect, dissimilar equipment on the factory floor, or let's say you're looking to connect machines reliably, globally, with our remote access solutions. We also enable connectivity between OT and business systems via OPC UA or MQTT. ProSoft is a global organization, and we've got people in offices in several countries, which allows us to remain close with many of our customers. ProSoft is an application-focused business with both on-site and off-site technical expertise, which will allow us to help you solve your most challenging industrial communication issues. Our products are used in a number of different applications and industries, such as to help modernize an auto manufacturing plant, to automate material handling operations, let's say either at a giant warehouse or at a port, to accurately perform gas and liquid flow calculations at a remote well pad site, whether it is to provide remote access that helps in reducing downtime and support costs, or to help bring back data from remote assets through to a central SCADA, either using wired or wireless communications. And also, I think many of you on the call will also know that Modbus is typically, ProSoft is typically known as the Modbus guys for our extensive range of in-chassis solutions that complement Rockwell's connected enterprise architecture. Okay, so like I said, today's discussion is focused on utilities, specifically the water and wastewater utilities. And we know that this is critical infrastructure. It is fundamental to any economic development and societal progression. Without water and wastewater utilities, really you cannot have the societal progression that we have today. And we also know there have been some pretty significant and quantum changes in technology for both water and wastewater treatment. These processes are highly regulated, and it is a continuous service. And like I stated previously, connectivity is really the key for reliable operation of these systems. But the industry is also facing some significant headwinds. And before we discuss what these issues are, I'd like to put up a poll question and would appreciate your participation. So the question is, what are the top 3 challenges facing water and wastewater industry? If you could please take a few seconds to answer that, I would appreciate it. So
looks like we have some
thank
good
you.
responses coming in, Vishal.
We do. Thanks, Danielle. Yes, some very good and some interesting responses. Almost 35% of the respondents have said the very last option, which is security, operational efficiency, and regulations, is the three most important factors or challenges facing the water and wastewater industry. And then the next highest response is infrastructure, regulations, and security. So again, thank you all for your participation. Interestingly, security, funding, and leak detection has come in last. And, the real answer is a bit of everything. Infrastructure certainly is the number one priority, but infrastructure is also encompassing. It includes a lot. The next is regulations. And again, that is very important. Most of the regulations is focused around security and data keeping. But in North America, you are right, leak detection is actually not a top priority because water is considered more as a right rather than as a limited resource. But for the rest of the world, for countries like Australia and even in the UK, where they still have a lot of water, water is still considered a very precious resource. So they spend a significant amount of investment and technology in clamping down on leaks. So again, thank you all for your time in answering this question. Okay. Right. Okay. So if we look at the main challenges that's facing the water and the wastewater industry, it can be broadly classified into 5 main categories. And those 5 categories are aging infrastructure, funding, regulations, efficiency, and security. Security is overarching. It really covers the entire process, whether you're talking the physical infrastructure, whether you're talking automation, the data transmission. Security covers all of those different things. And in order to meet these challenges, the water and the wastewater industry is moving towards a connected water and wastewater system. And what I mean by that is if you look at the investment, like, for example, the amount of money that's being invested in smart water technologies or the number of additional customers that are expected to be connected to the system, based on the growth of megacities and increased urbanization, these systems are moving towards this connected water wastewater system. Now let's take a couple of minutes to understand what this connected system means. Rockwell has actually got one of the best definitions of this. Rockwell states that a connected enterprise consists of industrial operations that are intelligent, optimized, and secure. Having this knowledge enables faster and better business decisions that help increase productivity, improve quality, and help to meet demand more precisely and cost effectively. Another definition out there for what a connected system means is that where a connected system not only monitors machines, but connects them to all of the vital hubs in a business and creating real-time abilities that enable predictive analytics and deeper operational insights. This connectivity allows businesses to convert this information and intelligence into quantifiable action items. So if you think about both of these definitions that I just mentioned, they're very similar, with the end goal being to increase efficiency and productivity. And the key to that is connectivity, as the name suggests. So in that case, if you look at a water or a wastewater system, and these images which show the overall process at a very, very high level, the most common assets you're going to come across a water or a wastewater system is treatment plants, pumping stations, and there are different types. They can be like a booster pumping station, a wet well pumping station of different sizes, a DT standby carbonation, but they're all fundamentally, you can club them as pumping stations, and then finally storage structures, which are primarily water towers. If you take these 3 structures, and if we recap quickly what the primary issues that's facing them, where ProSoft can help to solve these issues. That was too quick. Where ProSoft can help is in these three areas, which is modernization, data integrity and reliability, and of course, the most important of all, which is connectivity. And if you're wondering what is the correlation between these two lists, they're obviously not the same verbiage. So let me give you an example. Remember I said that aging infrastructure actually includes automation. And on top of that, not only do they have aging automation, utilities today have to contend with reduced funding in many cases. And this is where ProSoft's modernization solution comes in, because our solutions focus on connecting old to new and extending the life of assets for many of our mutual customers. So that's, like I said, just an example. Now, let's look at these in more detail, and you'll understand how, with those three different categories, we can help solve many of these issues for the water and wastewater industry. Like I said, the most important is connectivity. And let's start with defining what connectivity is. And again, if I look at the definition offered by the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the dictionary says that connectivity is the quality, the state of capability of being connected or connected. Fairly fancy meaning of what it means, but fundamentally, if you look at the water and wastewater industry, it just means having sort of almost a permanent connection between devices that need to talk to each other. And for water and wastewater systems, there are actually three types of connectivity. You've got device-level connectivity, that's fundamentally on the flow. Then you've got in-plant connectivity. So, for example, if you take like a treatment plant, which has got many parts, moving parts, they need to be interconnected, they need to share data. That's your in-plant connectivity. And finally, remote connectivity, which is to connect all of the remote assets that are geographically dispersed. Let's look at why connectivity is important. And before we do, I've actually got another poll question. And this time the question is, what do you think is the most, what do you think is the most common form of remote communications in water and wastewater systems used today? So again, if you could please take a couple of seconds to help answer this, I would appreciate it.
And as we're taking a look at this polling question, if any of our attendees have any questions for Vishal about any content that you've seen right now or content that you want to be seeing in the future, feel free to post that in our Q&A panel.
So some good responses coming in. Thank you again for everybody that is answering these questions. So let's give people a few more seconds to answer them, but it looks like cellular is actually leading the responses, and that's very interesting. That's followed by radio, and now they're heading more towards being neck and neck. So Daniel, there is a question that's come in, just observed, saying somebody does not see the poll. I'm not sure if you can help answer that question.
Yep, I respond to them. There's a simple fix. Thanks, Vishal.
Thank you. No problem. Okay, so I would say that based on the responses, it looks like there's a tie between unlicensed radio and cellular, but if you take both licensed and unlicensed radio as a single category, that has come out to be the most common form of remote communications. And I would agree with that based on my experience and what I've seen. It's also very true that cellular is starting to take as pretty much the predominant form of remote communications. And you're going to see how ProSoft can help with that. We've got a very unique solution. So a few more minutes, we'll get to that. Okay, let me get to the next slide. So this is talking about why connectivity is important. When we looked at the definition, again, I'm not going to go read through this list. You guys can certainly, but remember I said that connectivity is pretty much a prerequisite for anything, whether it's predictive maintenance, whether it's operational efficiency, whether it's meeting regulatory requirements. For any of those things, you really need reliable and an always-on connectivity for all of your remote assets, and especially in water and wastewater, because these assets are so geographically dispersed. So I talked about three types of connectivity, which was device level, in-plant, and remote connectivity. Let's look at those three in a little bit more detail. And the first one is your device level. So same as connecting disparate systems. Now, ProSoft is a leader in this. We support over 40 different protocols and over 120 different gateway combinations that enable you to connect various disparate protocols. We support some very old ones, plus also many of the newer OT IP protocols like OPC UA and MQTT. The one thing to keep in mind with our protocol solutions, connectivity solutions, is that they're all optimized for the Rockwell architecture, whether it is things with add-on profiles or direct attack technology or access to advanced diagnostics. They really make integrating these protocol solutions into the Rockwell architecture very simple and very easy to do. Here is some more examples. This shows connecting field bus protocols like HART and Profibus, again, optimized for Rockwell-based automation systems. The next connectivity that I want to talk about is in-plant. This is really a requirement for treatment plants, and and the treatment plant could be a water treatment plant or a wastewater treatment plant. The other assets in a water wastewater system, they're typically single structures and devices, so connectivity between, let's say, the field instruments and the device is more wired rather than wireless. But treatment plants, like I said, whether it's water or wastewater, they are spread over a very large area and have multiple processes. Like, for example, in a wastewater treatment plant, the input where the raw effluent comes in goes through what's called a screening process. Then you've got sedimentation, followed by aeration, and then clarifiers and so forth. Each of these processes, they have their own automation systems, and they need to share data because it's a cyclic process. They're all interconnected. And typically, wired connectivity between these different sections of the plant can be pretty expensive, and sometimes may simply not be possible, like depending on the age of the plant. And again, if you look early on as to why water and wastewater is moving towards this connected enterprise, you saw that there's millions of new customers that are being added. And in many of these cases, building a treatment plant is not an overnight project. So what tends to happen is they tend to look at existing infrastructure and see how it can be expanded to accommodate the increased demand. So when you're trying to expand, trying to put wired connectivity really sometimes is not an option, and that's where the wireless options come in. So reiterating that these wireless solutions are optimized for Rockwell with things like access to additional information, whether it's the RSSI signal, others that you can actually bring back through your controller and then display onto the SCADA system. And our 802.11 Wi-Fi radios, they're an industrial Wi-Fi radio, which means you've got the added benefit of actually connecting to mobile devices within the plant. So the third type of connectivity, and in my opinion, the most important for a water wastewater utility, is connectivity to remote assets. And if you remember, like I said, these assets are geographically dispersed over a really large area, and they have to operate reliably and efficiently. And earlier on with the poll question, I said that if you take licensed and unlicensed radio, that is today the most popular, but it is changing. And it's really changing towards cellular. So ProSoft has a very unique and a future-proof solution to connect these remote sites. We call it PDN, or Persistent Data Network. This is an always-on cloud-based communication network to connect to remote sites. It is fully cloud native, which means the end user has no software to install or maintain. It's a managed service with continuous defense and depth security. And that's a key point. Security is not a one-stop gap. Security does not stop at, it does not only apply, let's say, between 8 and 9 in the morning or at 4 to 5 in the afternoon, when the hackers might be active. It is continuous, it is ongoing, and there are new threats all the time. So with our PDN solution, we offer a managed service with this continuous defense and depth security. The solution itself is both platform and carrier agnostic, and it supports both cellular, wireless, and wired connections on a single network. It really is the simplest way to create a remote communications network. Think about PDN is like having a switch in the cloud, and anything that you connect to that switch will be able to talk to each other. Now, I can go on and on about PDN by itself, and that'll take me an entire hour. So if you actually want more information, please contact your local ProSoft sales manager or visit our website for more information. What I will do is I'll spend a couple more minutes on the benefits to see why this is the future remote networking for water and wastewater systems, or in fact, all utilities, and that's including power and oil and gas. Now, there are many advantages, and so these are being listed. I've highlighted some of the more significant advantages of our always-on communications network. Continuous security is something that, like I said, is a pretty significant differentiator for ProSoft, but it's also something that is very important for our customers. So I'm going to talk more about security in the next couple of slides. If you look at the other advantages, for example, remote access is one that I've highlighted as a significant major benefit. Remote access to the end site, so if you're talking pumping station, water tower, is not possible or typically not possible with RF communications, right? So imagine just a simple use case of where you're having to drive an hour or two just to hit the reset button. With remote access, you can solve that problem because you now be able to connect to the remote automation device and assess the issue and then take action as required. And because it's secure, your connection is fully encrypted and so forth. The other huge advantage, and this is very significant, that PDN offers is that it is a carrier agnostic solution. As you guys pointed out in the poll question, that many utilities are embracing cellular technology for the communications. But as they're embracing this, many of the solutions out there today, they're being forced to choose one of the major carriers as a solution provider, and they're kind of locked onto that. So if you choose Verizon, you're locked onto it, and let's say, for example, if there is a certain part of the town which has got better AT&T coverage, you're not able to add that to the system because Verizon and AT&T do not talk to each other. We've solved that problem with PDN. We are completely carrier agnostic. You could have a pump station that's on Verizon, you could have a pump station that's in AT&T or that's using T-Mobile, and all of those sites will all talk to each other. Remember I said that PDN is like having a switch in the cloud, which whatever you connect to it, and we're oblivious to the carrier that we use, they will still be able to communicate. That's the cloud-based network that we create so these remote sites can all talk to each other. What you see on the screen is an example of remote sites located globally. This is our simple test system that are able to talk to each other. So, for example, the site in our Australian office is on the local carrier, which is Telstra, and that's communicating to the site a location in Boston, simply sharing some data as a remote test system. Okay, like I said, this is pretty significant advantage, and I think a differentiator to many of the remote access solutions out there. So let's see why we think that PDN is the future. This is a high-level comparison between the most common form of remote communications in water and wastewater systems, comparing it to the ProSoft PDN solution. And PDN is the future because of the explosive developments in cellular technology, especially over the last decade. Today's cellular coverage is truly ubiquitous, to the point that it is actually the second most abundant thing that is available on Earth other than the air we breathe. That's pretty remarkable given this change has just happened over the last 10 years. The reliability continues to get better every day with better speeds and more bandwidth. And our PDN solution, so ProSoft PDN solution, is taking advantage of this readily available infrastructure for remote monitoring in the water and wastewater systems. Okay, so remember I said that I'm going to talk about security in more detail. You know, I spoke about this solution, this unique solution, PDN, where you have remote monitoring in water and wastewater. But one of the big concerns that many of the customers have, and rightly so, is security. And remember that the water wastewater is typically, it's a very highly regulated, both for security in terms of safety and also data security as well. So I can simply tell you that the PDN is secure, but rather than take my word, let's have a look at all of these multiple levels of security, the defense in depth that is part of the solution. At the outset, we have the physical device. So this is the gateway or appliance that enables this connectivity for the remote network. Our gateways are fully certified, including carrier-specific certifications like for Verizon. But apart from this, the firmware is digitally signed, and basically that means you cannot download any firmware into our gateways. They only support outbound connections, which means, again, they will never initiate a connection. They will only respond to an incoming request. And finally, there's a diversity port for additional reliability. The next level of security we have as part of the defense in depth approach is user access. PDN operates using ProSoft Connect, which is our cloud-native platform, where the user does not need any software, just a browser, and every time they connect, they're always connecting to the latest, greatest, and most secure. And as far as login goes, we support Active Directory via single sign-on. This makes it super simple for IT to manage user and application access. So when you're talking to large water authorities, whether it's like the city of Denver or the Las Vegas Water Authority, the large water authorities have their own IT departments, and they are very concerned about security, about remote access, and all of that. With Active Directory and single sign-on, it allows IT to manage that user access. The biggest advantage being, let's say if somebody has left the organization or they change a contractor, they can now go to a single location and revoke their access, which will then be applied across all of the systems that they have access to. We've also got token-based two-factor authentication, which is more secure according to NIST than SMS-based two-factor authentication. And then we've also got role-based user access along with complex passwords. The next level of security is the device access. In the device access, so we just spoke about all of the user access features that we have. So now with the user access, you're able to get onto the platform, but in order for you to actually access the device, you'll have to go through another set of requirements. And that could be whether you actually have access to that specific gateway. And let's say if you've got 100 remote sites, we can assign which specific gateway, let's say a maintenance technician has access to. And that way, if it's, let's say, if it's a southbound, they would not have access, let's say, to the northbound sites. That might operate slightly differently, or they may not have training on that equipment. And then, of course, there is vLotto. I'm sure that many of you, or quite a number of you on this call, would have heard about it. vLotto stands for Virtual Lockout Tagout. Again, very unique to ProSoft. This gives the end user complete control over remote access. It's a really, really cool feature. And if you want to learn more about vLotto, I'd recommend going to our website. So it's really cool. It really puts complete control with the end user when you want to access something remotely. It's also used to create this always-on type network. And then, of course, there's single-use tunnel credentials, which means no more saving of the username or the ability to share details. Every time you connect, there's a unique username that's generated and used. The next level of security we have is the data. And this is specifically talking about user data. The ProSoft PDN solution does not store, translate, or manipulate user data. We simply create a secure 256-bit encrypted tunnel between the sites. We don't know what data goes through. We simply know how much data is being sent through. And then we have whitelisting as well, which allows you to specify which end devices can be accessed. And the final level of security is the platform itself, which is ProSoft Connect. It's a true cloud-native platform. It's designed to be OT friendly and IT secure, and it is a platform for all of ProSoft's industrial remote connectivity solutions. Being cloud-native means we can take advantage of the power of cloud computing and continuing to use some of the latest technology, whether it's in terms of the development of the features and the support of the application, and things like also security and redundancy, like the ability to have multiple tunnel servers located around the world, things like third-party pen testing, and a very detailed audit trail of all of the logs. So, and with these dedicated channels, we also have these dedicated channels, the dedicated data channel and the control channel. Think about this like as a two-lane highway, where one of them is dedicated like for high-speed cars with no interruptions. And this is because, like, especially for utilities, remember I said that connectivity is the most important thing, whether if you want to run a very reliable and safe water and wastewater system. So having this always on, this high-speed lane essentially between the remote sites, we ensure this always on connectivity for all the remote sites to communicate with each other. Excuse me. So clearly a very busy slide with a lot of information. Like I said, we know our customers take security seriously, and so do we. So the next area where ProSoft can help water and wastewater systems is with data reliability and integrity. And before I can tell you more about data reliability and integrity, we're going to have another poll question, and this is the final one, I promise. So the question here is, what do you think is an example of data integrity? So if you could please take a few seconds to answer this, I would appreciate it. In the meantime, I will take a few seconds to grab another sip of water.
Looks like we have a resounding all of the above for responses for the show.
Yeah, we absolutely have a clear winner in this case. The correct answer is all of the above. It really, whether if you think about it, you need working field devices and instruments to ensure that you've got reliable data coming through. You need that reliable connection to get that data from the remote site into your automation devices, like the data logging, so forth, and then you have to get that data reliably back to the SCADA system. So really the answer is all of the above. Thank you again for your responses to that. Okay. So let's start with defining what data reliability and integrity is. According to the Business Dictionary, data integrity is the accuracy and validity of stored data over its entire life cycle. And data reliability is the overall consistency of the measure of that data, which is a fairly obvious definition. If you think about it, they certainly make sense. Now, the next two facts that I've got listed up there, they're pretty interesting. By the way, the ASDWA stands for the Association of State Drinking Water Administrators. Fundamentally, what those two facts that I've listed there are saying is that there is significant issues with data reliability coming in. And the primary reason for that seems to be lack of training and equipment. And equipment includes everything from field devices to the sensors, controllers, the communication media, a lot of it. So again, if you go back to the definition, if you don't have that reliability and that integrity, it does make sense that there are issues about the data coming in. And all you have to go to do is to go to websites like the EPA or the AWWA. There are hundreds of these reports that talk about issues with data integrity and what the EPA is trying to do about it. So what is the impact of this unreliable data on water and wastewater systems? And frankly, it's quite a lot. We've all heard that saying, data is power. And you saw examples in the previous slide about how much unreliable data is being reported. But it's not just unreliable data. If you think about it, there's a bigger impact, everything to do with operational efficiency and maintenance, because if you don't have the right data, you can never do a correct root cause analysis to try and solve a problem. You might be band-aiding the problem, you might be patching a solution, but you're never going to truly solve a problem without accurate and reliable data. So more than just regulatory reporting, unreliable data can really impact the efficiency, which in turn then impacts the cost and everything else of a water or wastewater system. And how do we solve this problem? How do we solve this data integrity issue? We can solve this using the DNP3 protocol. Now, DNP stands for Distributed Network Protocol. It has been around for quite some time. It's a very well-established protocol, and it's been around for more than a quarter of a century. It is used primarily in utilities for telemetry communications, and it offers a number of advantages that's focused around that integrity and reliability. I think fundamentally it helps that this is an open protocol that's managed by an independent organization that's not associated with any specific automation vendor. DNP supports secure authentication, so not only does it help with data reliability and integrity, it also supports secure authentication, answering the security question as well, and with timestamping, where the data is actually timestamped at the source rather than at the destination, which is very typical in SCADA systems. And as far as reliability goes, obviously it's very dependent on the field devices and the sensors, but assuming that they're working correctly, one of the big advantages with DNP3 is that it allows for data classification, which means it has this ability to take all of the field data, categorize it, that allows you as a user to say, to prioritize which data is more important. And let's say then, given the protocol's ability, like say, for example, to do unsolicited reporting, where a remote station can initiate the message to send an alarm condition, it can take that data classification and the data prioritization and say, this is an alarm event that needs to be sent quickly, rather than, let's say, something that might be considered as a standard. So, for example, a pump going on and off is a standard event, and you want to know when the pump went on and off, but it is not as critical as knowing that a pump has gone faulty. So with DNP3 in a remote system, in a water wastewater telemetry system, and with unsolicited reporting, these alarms take a higher priority for that message to get into the SCADA rather than what something might be considered as a normal event. And if you think about this, then helps with operational efficiency. So the key takeaway with DNP3 is that there will be no holes in your data. Again, DNP3 is a topic unto itself. If you need more information or you're wanting to understand more about DNP3, please contact either Rockwell or ProSoft, and we can help you with that. Now, the last of the three areas where ProSoft can help with is water and wastewater is modernization. So why is modernization important? It is very important because, if you recall, going back to the very start, the primary issues facing water and wastewater industries were aging infrastructure, funding, regulations, efficiency, and security. And our modernization solutions solve this funding efficiency and aging automation issues by extending or maximizing the life of assets, helping to connect between old and new and replace migration. All of this has a very positive impact on the operational efficiency. And a large part of the modernization involves enabling customers to connect legacy devices to new equipment. So, for example, the SLC 500 to a new Ethernet IP HMI for a drive. We can also connect legacy DH485 and ControlNet and DeviceNet devices to the current Rockwell standard, where just about all of the devices support Ethernet IP. And then we have our NX2 series of Blue Hose replacement solution, whereby it enables older Rockwell remote I/O, things like variable speed drives and so forth that need to be replaced without having to change the PLC program, because the mapping between the old and the new is actually done in our device. So that helps customers reduce the amount of time that they have to spend in retesting the certification, so the implementation time. And that, of course, once they can do that, then it helps with increasing efficiency and then being more efficient. So we're pretty much at the end now, just a few more slides to go. So I'm going to cover, and my summary section is actually long, so we've got about 3 slides to go in this. So if you recapture what we've discussed in this session, whether we're dealing with a wastewater system or a water system, we've discussed the importance of connectivity. And I'd like to reiterate that it is the foundation, it is the basis for a utility to operate efficiently. The connectivity enables better operational efficiency, better security, and more reliable data acquisition. And if customers want to take advantage of things like Industry 4.0 and IIoT, then really connectivity is that basic first step in their journey towards taking advantage of any of those new technologies. Rockwell's Connected Enterprise Solutions, combined with ProSoft's connectivity expertise, allows utilities, water and wastewater utilities, to continue providing a world-class service to their customers. So this is a key takeaway slide. I kind of summarized all of the key points we spoke about today, and mapping that across to what the main customer benefits would be with the ProSoft solutions. So finally, reiterating why ProSoft is your ideal partner for water and wastewater utility solutions. And apart from ProSoft being one of the oldest Encompass partners, our solutions work hand in glove with Rockwell products and solutions. Our solutions are always optimized for Rockwell, whether it be through things like add-on profiles or direct attack technology or access to diagnostic parameters. And of course, all of you guys are very well aware of our excellent product support. Our support team has significant application expertise, and they are very well versed with Rockwell products. The advantage then to our customers is that there is no pointing fingers. When you call our support, we can help solve the problem. And of course, then there is this ecosystem of distributors and systems integrators that can help our customers very, very quickly and very efficiently, whether it is to access parts or whether it is to help solve the problem. Okay, so with that said, how can we help? Please do visit our website, whether it's for information on any of the topics we've discussed today, or whether you need detailed information. Certainly, please look at our YouTube channel. Believe it or not, after all these years, Modbus to Ethernet IP video is one of the most popular videos, and it's got over 100,000 hits. I think it might be approaching several 100,000 hits. So please use our YouTube channel, where we've got a large number of training videos that will show you how to use or access our solutions very, very efficiently. So with that, like I said, how can we help? And I am now open to take questions.
I just wanted to answer the quick question about the PDH certificate, Vishal, as you're looking through some of the Q&A that came through. You will all be receiving a PDH credit for joining the webcast live today. We will be linking that PDH credit in your thank you for joining email, which you will get within the next few days. That email also includes the link to the on-demand webcast, as well as a finalized Q&A document and additional contact information for our speaker today. So thank you for asking that question. And then Vishal, if you see any that you'd like to answer live, whether or not they've been answered in the chat or not, feel free to go through any of those.
Sure. I see a question from Mr. Tyler, which says, and the question is rolled through. Let me find the question again. It says, is the data classification from DNP the same as used in a managed Ethernet switch? No, it's not. So what DNP3 does is, let's say, for example, you've got different types of data. It could be a digital input, it could be an analog input, it could be a derived data, like, for example, you want to calculate the number of times the pump has started or the number of hours the pump has been running. What DNP3 allows you to do is to classify each one of those types as different. So, for example, you can say all of my digitals are like a class 1 type, and let's say all of my derived is class 3. And the idea with that classification, the theory behind that is it allows you to bring back the most important data more frequently and set them up as an alarm condition. So as an example, let's say you're calculating the number of times the pump has started over a period of time. That's very important data, but you don't need to know about the number of times the pump has started continuously, especially if it's just a normal action. What you'd want to know is, let's say, at the end of the day, the number of times the pump operated over a 24-hour period and the number of hours it has run. So you could say, okay, this is class 3 data. I'm only going to bring this back once a day. But then the status data, which could be, is the pump running on or off? Is the pump faulty? Is the valve faulty? Or, did somebody trip the security switch? These are conditions that if there is, especially if there's a fault condition, you want to know about it straight away. And enabling this as class 1 data, you can then enable an unsolicited report and say, okay, if there is any class 1 event, so that is the pump went faulty or somebody triggered the security switch, then initiate a message to send this data to the SCADA master immediately. And that way, if you've got an operator, let's say, that's sitting and observing the system, they can see that alarm condition straight away, rather than, let's say, if your poll cycle was to take 30 minutes, they might come to know about it 30 minutes later. That's the advantage of data classification. There's another question from Kevin Davis, which says, what is the update rate or max poll rate of your cellular solutions? That's a very, very good question. It really does depend on, let's say, the number of sites you're trying to poll or how much data you're bringing back. I can give you sort of a real-life example. We've got a customer that's currently using our PDN with cellular technology. They've got approximately 45 sites on their system, and before they started using PDN, they had a combination of licensed radios, and microwave, and their poll period for all of those sites was several minutes. And they were bringing back about 100 data points, so 50 read-only and 50 write data points, a total of 100 from each site. So if you think for 100 sites, that is, 100 times 25, which is 4,500 data points into their top-end SCADA. When they adopted PDN as their solution for remote communications, they were able to reduce the polling frequency for all of those sites down to just under 9 seconds. So they were able to bring back all of that data. There was no decrease in the amount of data that they're bringing back, but they're able to poll all of these sites pretty significantly. Our modems themselves support both 3G and 4G connectivity. So it will automatically switch depending on what's available in the area. But if you look at 4G LTE speeds, they're in the megabits. You don't need all of that speed and bandwidth, because what you're bringing back is just a few bytes of data, but it is incredibly quick.
All right, thanks, Vishal. It looks like we have all of the questions that were asked within the Q&A have either been answered live or within the chat itself. So unless you want to go further into any of those responses, we can wrap up a few minutes early. So we have all of those answered for our attendees.
No, that's excellent. No, I don't have. I'm sure my colleagues have answered all of the questions, and like you said, we can go through them later if we need to. So I'm good, Danielle.
All right, great. Is there any last responses or a wrap-up that you just want to give our attendees for today?
No, again, thank you all for your time. Please make sure you're staying safe and healthy given the current crisis, and please feel free to reach out to either Rockwell or to your ProSoft Regional Sales Manager if you need any additional information, anything you've heard today. And as Danielle said, we will be sharing these slides along with some additional information over the coming days. Thank you all for your time.
Thanks, Vishal, and thanks to the rest of the ProSoft team for joining today and presenting all this valuable information to our attendees. And thank you to all of our attendees for joining us today as well for this hour. Like Vishal said, we hope you're staying safe and healthy during this time. If you could take one more minute to participate in the post-webinar survey that will pop up in a minute. We do appreciate your feedback on that when updating the program and the platform and content for all of you. So thank you again for joining. You will be receiving additional information from us within the next few days. And if you have any other questions, feel free to contact us. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.